You said there was a deadline.
Oh, sorry.
What is the deadline?
Yeah. So the point here is, as it were, a preliminary point to a deal, which is our collective view is that Russia is playing games, that Putin is back to his old playbook. Europe, taking Europe as a whole, has not been this strong and united for a very long time, and that was clearly the mood in the room. But in the operational planning that goes with it, and therefore the pressure needs to go on to Russia to get more seriously to the negotiating table and to have a framework or a deadline, if you like, for responding to what the Ukrainians have already put on the table.
Keir Starmer just had his hold my beer moment in Paris, and boy did he spill it everywhere. In what many are calling a catastrophic blunder, our PM casually mentioned British troops might be heading to Ukraine without Parliament's immediate approval. Remember when politicians actually asked permission before sending our boys into danger zones?
That now is not the time for pulling back or weakening on sanctions. On the contrary, now is the time for increasing sanctions on Russia. And what the US is seeking to achieve in their initiative. So I think there's got to be a framework around that. Obviously, we'll discuss that with allies and with the US. But also, and this was a very strong resolve, to get them to the table to these negotiations to the hope of a ceasefire and a lasting and secure ceasefire that preserves the security and sovereignty of Ukraine.
Starmer apparently skipped that chapter in Democracy for Dummies. Now he's scrambling faster than my dad trying to explain why he voted for Brexit at Thanksgiving dinner. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. Remember when Keir Starmer was marketed as the boring, sensible alternative? The guy who'd bring law and order back to number 10 after the Bojo circus and Rishi's revolving door of disasters. Well, folks, it seems our Mr. Starmer just tossed his responsible adult badge into the Thames and decided chaos might be fun after all. For months, Sir Keir has been parading around with his serious lawyer face, promising accountability and proper process. "Look at me," he practically shouted. "I follow rules. I dot my I's and cross my T's."
Ensure that we put pressure on the Russians to get to the table, to actually negotiate and be really clear that they are filibustering, they are delaying. So that's as it were, the other element of the meeting today. So up until now, very much a focus on how do we defend a deal if we get there. Today, an equal emphasis, I would say, on how do we collectively, as a pretty large group of nations, and we've seen this playbook before. Look, I mean, we in the mood for deadlines. I don't want to put a hard deadline on this, but we need to see this developing.
The entire Labour campaign was essentially, we're not those other guys who had wine parties during lockdown or tanked the economy faster than a lead balloon. But apparently, when it comes to potentially sending British troops into an active war zone, all that process talk goes right out the window. During his Paris love fest with Macron last Friday, our PM casually mentioned deploying troops to Ukraine without bothering with that pesky little thing called parliamentary approval. You know, just a minor detail in a democracy. Let's roll the clip of what Starmer actually told Christopher Hope from GB News when asked about parliamentary votes. Here he is, squirming in his suit. Well, obviously for any long-term deployment, there would need to be a vote in Parliament. Long-term deployment? What exactly does that mean, Sir Keir? Is that like saying, "I'll do the dishes later" to your spouse? Are we talking days, weeks, or until Putin decides to become a yoga instructor? The beautiful vagueness of political speak at its finest, ladies and gentlemen. It's the perfect get out of accountability free card. Send in troops for 5 months and 29 days. Not long term. Nothing to see here. Just a quick pop into a war zone. Maybe they'll bring back souvenirs. Conservative leader Kimi Badenoch wasn't having any of it. She fired back. This government promised transparency but is now trying to bypass Parliament on matters of national security. Even the Lib Dems and Reform UK who rarely agree on whether water is wet, joined the chorus demanding proper parliamentary consultation. And then there's Starmer's magnificent triple-pronged approach with France and Germany. Sounds impressive, right? Like some kind of sophisticated European diplomatic maneuver. Let me translate that from political speak. We have no actual plan, but if we call it triple-pronged, it sounds like we know what we're doing. It's the international relations equivalent of putting synergy on your resume. The timing couldn't have been more perfect either. Just hours after Starmer's big announcement about this fantastic new European alliance, Zelensky was on camera accusing Russia of breaking ceasefire agreements. Nothing says our plan is solid like announcing it right before everything it's supposed to address immediately falls apart. But the real chef's kiss in this political faceplant was watching Mr. Accountability himself dodge accountability. The same man who built his entire political brand on being transparent, following proper procedures, and holding others to account, suddenly developing an allergic reaction to answering follow-up questions. Reporters tried to get clarification on exactly what long-term meant, and Starmer pulled the political equivalent of, "Oh look, is that my phone ringing?" before awkwardly speed-walking away. Roll the footage of Starmer's rapid exit, practically leaving a Starmer-shaped dust cloud as reporters shouted questions at his back. Nothing says, "I'm in complete control of this situation," like fleeing from journalists faster than MPs running from their campaign promises after an election. The irony is thicker than the walls of Parliament. Sir Keir spent years criticising Boris Johnson for playing fast and loose with the rules, only to decide that when it comes to potentially putting British troops in harm's way, maybe rules are more like guidelines after all. It's almost poetic if it weren't so concerning. What's next in the Starmer playbook? Maybe he'll announce a complete overhaul of the NHS via TikTok. Perhaps major tax reforms will be revealed exclusively through fortune cookies. You will soon pay more in capital gains. Lucky numbers 7, 15, 23. To be fair, being Prime Minister is hard. It's not all fancy dinners and getting to use the good bathroom at number 10. But one would think that check with Parliament before hinting at sending troops to a war might be on page 1 of the How Not to Mess Up as PM handbook. We'll talk about a dramatic career change. Starmer's gone from so serious to so screwed up faster than you can say parliamentary procedure. The former lawyer who spent years picking apart others' mistakes now stars in his own political blooper reel. Whoopsie! The irony is absolutely delicious. After building his entire brand on being Mr. Follow the Rules, he's now playing fast and loose with democracy when it comes to, just potentially sending British troops into an active war zone. No biggie. Parliament's collective jaw is still on the floor, and Starmer's honeymoon period has officially ended. Welcome to the big leagues, Keir, where your mistakes don't need a law degree to understand.